Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Danielle Daily. Thank you so much for joining me here. This is the first time I'm running this live broadcast from my Danielle Daily Facebook page. So I am hoping that some of you will be receiving the notification and hopping on. This may end up being the very first episode where I end up realizing my fear of talking to myself into a camera. So we'll see. Hopefully people will be receiving the notification and hopping on. Today's topic is a really great one. I'm excited to talk about it. As I've said in past episodes, I love it when you guys bring me topics, because what you are actually dealing with out there in the world is so much more interesting to me and to everyone else than whatever sort of things that I'm picking out. So thank you. Today's topic was actually brought from a viewer after she watched yesterday's broadcast, and she put it in the comments to me this morning, and I thought about it this morning, and I thought about what I wanted to say and what wisdom I would offer her if we were sitting together face to face. And so I wanted to talk about that. You know, how do you prepare yourself when you know that something is going to be difficult and is definitely coming up on the horizon? How do you stay positive? How do you stay light? How do you keep that from ruining your present moment? And how do you prepare yourself for it so that when that inevitably difficult thing comes, you'll have the opportunity to actually move through it with grace and maybe even enjoy yourself? So that is today's topic. Again, if you're just joining us, I'm Danielle Watson. This is the Danielle Daily Show. It's an interesting day because normally I run this broadcast through my personal Facebook page, and today I'm running it through the Danielle Daily Show page. And it looks like people are hopping on finally. Yes, so I'm not talking to myself anymore. It looks like Tracy is here. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I don't have to realize my fear today of talking to myself into the camera. So thank you. I love you guys. I so appreciate you hopping on and joining me here today, because there's pretty much nothing worse in my world than talking by myself into the camera. So today we are talking about how to keep positive and keep light when you know something hard or difficult is coming. You know, sometimes life gives us a plot twist that comes by surprise, and other times we know something's coming and we have the opportunity to prepare for it. Thank you for all the hearts, Tracy. Thank you. I love that. You're making me feel so loved. I appreciate you. So this question came up from one of our viewers yesterday after she watched yesterday's broadcast, and in her life, she definitely has a difficult transition coming up, and I'll talk about it because she did post it publicly, so I'm pretty sure that it's not a secret. So her husband is actually going to be deploying. He's in the military, and that means that she's going to be left alone with a new baby, just a baby that's just a few months old. And so if any of my viewers are military spouses or have been through deployment, or have been in a situation where you have had to manage having a small child and you being the only caretaker, I would love it if you would put some wisdom into the comments for our viewer who will be dealing with this, because I personally have never been through that exact situation. But what I can contribute to the conversation is my perspective on how to prepare ourselves for when something difficult is coming up. But I know if you have particular experience with deployment or being a single parent, I'm sure Elena would really appreciate any wisdom you have. So please feel free to type that into the comments either during the live broadcast or even afterwards once this is a recording. So I also have today's note to self for you. I'll be giving you that a little bit later in the broadcast. And I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter so that it's easier for you to enjoy the entire broadcast. Or if you're watching later, you're not looking at it going, oh my gosh, I don't have 20 minutes to devote to this. So we'll just talk quickly about how to prepare ourselves when it feels like something hard is coming. And I would love your input. And so far, I don't see what I normally see when I do this from my personal page. So nobody's face is actually popping up in the comments, which is a little bit different. And I actually haven't seen a comment yet. So if you're watching, I would love it if you would just type a comment in so that I know it's that function is working. Even if you just type hi, that would be awesome. Okay, so what do we do when we know something difficult and challenging or even hard is coming up to prepare ourselves? How are we going to stay positive and light? Okay, Tracy left a comment. She says, love these shows, awesome. So I know the comment functionality is working. Thank you, Tracy. I sincerely appreciate that. There's nothing worse than worrying that something that you don't understand isn't quite working. So to prepare ourselves when something difficult is happening, my strategy is to make a plan. I know many of you know that I went through a divorce last year, and when that first happened, I made a plan. And I gave it a really awful name, but it worked for me. And I highly recommend that you do this. So for me, I knew that I was in a really difficult emotional situation, and I called my plan the Don't Get Depressed plan. And I know that that isn't very positive sounding, but that's exactly what it was. My plan was all about my goal to not get depressed as I went through this situation. I knew there were all kinds of factors that were out of my control. I knew I was going to go through a roller coaster of emotions. I knew that my life was going to change, that all sorts of things were going to be out of my control. But what I really didn't want was to end up on top of all that, ending up with depression on top of it. So my strategy, the thing I felt like I could control, was to keep myself from falling into depression, because there's lots of resources out there that show us, how to keep our mood up, how to stay positive, how to keep focused on the future. And so my plan was all about actually doing those things so that I didn't become depressed. And it worked for me. And it's interesting how for so many things that we might face in life, the information is out there on how to get out of it or how to prepare for it. But the key is to actually do the things. So having the information is wonderful, but if we don't do the things, then we don't end up actually receiving the results. We don't actually end up receiving the benefit of the information. So my Don't Get Depressed plan involved, having a circle of friends, having certain music that I would listen to that would help pump me up, making sure that I was seeing a therapist on a regular basis so that she was monitoring me for depression, and exercising on a regular basis, because there's so many studies that show that exercise is really helpful in maintaining or even boosting our mood. So for me, that was what I did. So if you know something is difficult and it's that something is going to be difficult for you and you know it's coming up, my suggestion would be to make a plan of things that you know will help you through a difficult time. So anytime I know something's going to be difficult, I try to make sure that I'm monitoring how much water I'm intaking. I make sure that I'm eating enough food. I make sure I make time for exercise. I make sure that I have a mental health outlet, whether that's meditation or going to see a therapist or talking with a friend. I make sure that I have resources around me, things that lift me up. So having a reading list of books that you want to read, or having songs that will lift your mood, and just being relentless with bombarding yourself with these positive messages. You can take to, having a practice like I did of writing a positive daily note to self. There are so many things that we can do to keep positive and light through that experience. And in advance of the experience, we make the plan. So we make the plan in advance when we have the opportunity to do that, and then we execute the plan when we are actually going through that. And the key is to really stay in the present. So even though we know something difficult is coming up, it's not, in Elena's case, it's not happening yet. She has some time before that's going to happen. And so she has time to prepare. And I really want her to stay focused on what is actually happening right now, to make the plan, but not worry about that future thing. To know that she's made the plan now and that she'll be ready to handle the situation when it comes up. And I think that's really all we can do. We can make a plan to support ourselves and then use it when the time comes up. So I wanted to give today's note to self. I hope that you will write it down. If you don't have a piece of paper out or somewhere that you can record today's note to self, go ahead and get that out now. But before I give today's note to self, I just wanted to give you a different way of thinking about things that you know are coming up that might be challenging. So think back on your life and really think about all the things you've been through that were once unknowns, and all the people you've met who were once unknowns and maybe seemed frightening or scary or intimidating. And think about that for a second. Some of the most cherished experiences and people who are in your life now were once unknowns. And really, when we're looking at something in the future that feels like it's going to be hard or feels like it's going to be difficult or is going to be painful, a lot of times it's just because it's an unknown. We're not really sure how to handle it or what it's going to be like. But when you think back on your life, the things that are most wonderful and that you most cherish and the people you most love were also at one point unknown. So try to think about that when you think about change happening in the future, and how you never know where something that was the most amazing experience you ever had or the most amazing important person you ever met, that might be contained within that experience. So just keep an eye to that. So today's note to self, please write it down. You never know when this is going to be exactly what you need to keep yourself going. Here it is. It says, "Dear self, sometimes the thing you most want from others is the one thing you have to give to yourself." Let me read that again. "Dear self, sometimes the thing you most want from others is the one thing you have to give to yourself." So I know that what we really want from others when we're facing down something difficult is for them to fix it for us, or we want God to fix it for us, or the universe to fix it for us, or we just don't want whatever that difficult thing is to happen. But sometimes what we have to do is to give ourselves the experience that we want to have. So that might look like preparing ourselves to go through something that is challenging in a way that feels supported. So think about that. I hope that is helpful. Let me read you the note to self one more time before I go. Again, today's note to self reads, "Dear self, sometimes the thing you most want from others is the one thing that you have to give to yourself." So remember, if something's feeling scary, something's feeling intimidating, and you're really wishing that things could be different or somebody else could fix this for you, remember that sometimes we have to just do it for ourselves. And I wish it could be otherwise, but that's usually how it goes. The more grown up we become, the more we have to provide those things for ourselves. So I hope that was helpful. I have been Danielle Watson. This is the Danielle Daily Show. This was the first time I ran it through the Danielle Daily Facebook page. It will be interesting to see if this is a new way, if this is the way that it's going to work best and it's going to reach the most people who need that positivity and inspiration and fun in their lives, or if I'll end up running it through my personal page again. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate those of you who tuned in so that I didn't have to talk to myself into the camera. I love and appreciate you guys, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye. Mwah.